Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you coming to join us today for this online event. We're very pleased to have so many people joining from many different locations around the world. It's my honor today to be able to welcome you. I'm Herod Lang, Executive Director of the International Association of Professionals in Humanitarian Assistance and Protection, PHAP, or PHAP for short. And we're pleased to have the chance to speak with all of you today, and also to have some honored guests with us to explore a bit how things are going now with the regional consultation for Eastern and Southern Africa for the World Humanitarian Summit process. So we have a terrific crowd today, and I know everyone has been introducing themselves already in the chat, and I encourage you certainly to continue to do that. I can see just running through the list here, we have a large number of people joining today from Kenya. We also have a large group from South Africa, several people from Ethiopia who are in Uganda, Somalia, Sudan, a great spread across the region in Africa. And then, of course, joining from Europe, we also have people in Switzerland, Belgium, France, Denmark, Italy, so a very diverse group, and of course also people joining from other regions where World Humanitarian Summit consultations have concluded or are about to start. So very good to have the chance for cross-regional discussion as well, in addition to this targeted look at how things are going in the Eastern and Southern Africa regional consultation. So the structure for today's events will include first very brief technical introduction from my side. I'll be quickly introducing everyone to the way this platform works for those of you who have not joined us in the last few months for one of these events. Then I'll be introducing our three honored guests and inviting them each to make a short presentation regarding their own perspectives on the World Humanitarian Summit process, how it's been proceeding, and where they see it going in the coming weeks, in the coming months in the Eastern and Southern Africa region. Then we'll have some time for questions and answers, for discussion. So throughout the event, I would strongly encourage all of you listening in today, as you have questions come to your mind, questions for the speakers, comments on the process, points you would like to make to the group, please enter those into the question box, and we'll be sure to incorporate those into the discussion both during the event today and in the follow-up discussions, in the written forum, and through our email exchange. So with that, we'll move to the technical introduction now to give you a bit of an overview of how things work here. As I mentioned, for asking questions in the event, we'd ask you to use the Ask a Question box. This is to the right of the chat box. So for general discussion, you should have that in the chat. If you'd like to ask a question to the speakers, please do put those in the question box so that we can organize them on our side. Next, for poll questions, you'll see at certain times during the coming hour, a new box will appear on your screen that looks something like this, asking a survey question, if you like, to the group. These are intended to give a quick opportunity for feedback from all of you who are listening, so that we can ask questions regarding what you think about something the speakers have just said, and we can incorporate the feedback of the group in this virtual room into the discussion more efficiently. So please do, when you see the poll questions come up, please do click on your answer, and then we'll collate the results and work those into the discussion as well. Next, we wanted to point out that we're also conducting a live Twitter feed of the event. This is at PHAP Forum and using the hashtag ReshapeAid. So for those of you who are active Twitter followers, you can follow along there at the same time. And then finally, we have a new feature we'd like to mention, which is for those who may have difficulty hearing the event through this platform, we've set up an alternative, which is to listen with the live streaming through YouTube, which is available at the link you see on your screen. So it's phap.org/26-SEP 2014/watch. That brings you to a live streaming on YouTube where you can watch the event as a backup solution in case the audio is not working well for you here. Okay, good. And I can see that most of you have found the poll that we've just put up on the screen, and it looks like the majority of people answering so far, this is the first time in a PHAP online event. So a very warm welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time, and I hope it will not be the last. Okay, excellent. So I am now going to move on quickly to introducing our speakers so we can get into the meat of the discussion today. We're really delighted to have with us three excellent speakers who have been involved, each in a very different way, in the build-up to and the ongoing process related to the World Humanitarian Summit, specifically in the Eastern and Southern Africa region. We're going to begin by hearing from Mr. Ignacio Leon-Garcia, who is currently head of the Regional Office for Southern Africa with OCHA, and he is calling in today from South Africa. We'll then be hearing from Philippe Habinshuti, who is Director of Disaster Response and Recovery with the Rwanda Ministry of Disaster Management and Refugee Affairs. And Philippe is today calling in from Rwanda. Warm welcome to you. And then finally, we'll hear from Mitaru, who is an international lawyer and currently serving as Humanitarian Advocacy Adviser for the East Africa region with Save the Children. And Anne is participating today from Kenya. So thank you all very much for being here. I know you all have very busy schedules, and we're really honored that you're taking the time to be with us and to be with all of our participants online to keep this discussion going regarding the regional consultation and to help people to understand how things are going, how things are proceeding, what is foreseen for the future, and of course how they and their organizations can get involved. So thank you very much for helping with this, and we look forward to discussing with you. So with that, we are going to move to introducing and welcoming Mr. Leon-Garcia to take the floor. And if you would perhaps start us off with a presentation explaining a bit at the higher level how you see, how you envision the process for the World Humanitarian Summit taking place in the region, what's happened so far and where things are going. So the floor is yours, Mr. Leon-Garcia.
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning or good afternoon to everybody, depending of where is your location. Look, for us, the World Humanitarian Summit is not only an event. I think that the World Humanitarian Summit is an opportunity for all of us to rethink what we are doing. I think that when you are a humanitarian worker, sometimes you are in a context where you don't have enough time to think. And I believe that because you need to act in front of the needs of the population affected. But I believe that this is giving to us a unique opportunity to see what we are doing well and what we are not doing so well. That I'm quite sure that also there is a huge space for improvement. Look, the approach that we have, the vision that we have in our region is not only to look the needs of the population. I think that the most important thing is that we need to move from needs to aspirations. I have been working in this job now for quite a long time, and people would like to have their needs covered, but they have their aspiration. They would like to see There are kids in the school. They would like to see their brother and sister with proper jobs. They would like to see a proper house. They would like to see education. They would like to have access to health. Therefore, I believe that we need to move, and this is a good opportunity, from a need approach to an aspiration approach. And to do so, the UN or the international NGOs or the communities or the civil society cannot be doing that alone. We need to find, and this is our proposal, collective answer to the problems of those who are suffering. And if we would like to have that collective answer, we need to have in place a quite inclusive process. And this is what we are trying to do in the two regions, in East and Southern Africa, is to be as inclusive, as much inclusive as we can. And this is why it's only an example. Up until now, we have received the answer of 800 stakeholders, international NGOs, national NGOs, and governments, and we have received the answer to more than 2,000 people affected. Therefore, we have started to have feedback of those who have been involved on humanitarian operations, but also those who are suffering the consequences of the crisis. Therefore, for me, that is the two main approach that we have. First, we need to look at aspirations. Second, we need to be inclusive and to understand that sometimes what we are implementing at the community level is not in line what the community is requesting. Only one example, the majority, and this is one of the very preliminary results, the majority of the communities consulted, they consider that they are not prepared or better prepared for the next crisis. They consider that after the intervention of the international community, at the end of the day, they continue, if they need to confront the same crisis again, they don't have new tools in order to minimize the impact. Therefore, I believe that what the community is telling us, we need to put that in line and to review the way that we are working in general on the humanitarian arena. Therefore, I repeat, that is the two pillars. What is what we are preparing up until the 27th of October, when the regional consultations will take place in South Africa? The first thing is to analyze all these response from the different stakeholders and to try to analyze with a very scientific methodology. We have a team of analysts that they are receiving not only the answer, but also all those documents that are relevant for this consultation, and they will try to have some consultations document that will be the base at the end of the day of our discussions in Pretoria on the 27th of October. That is the first thing, analyze, and after we have analyzed that document, and since now we need to ensure that the right people is represented in the during the event. We have reduced a lot. We have limited the participation of the international organizations in favor of having more community affected, more refugees, more women, more migrants, to have more civil society, to know how the national NGOs consider that we should improve our system, and certainly to increase the number of governments who will be participating, because at the end the responsibility of response will remain with them. Therefore, in summary, I believe that the first thing is to hear everybody. The second thing is to ensure that those who have been affected by crisis and those who are directly linked with the response will be in Pretoria on the 27th of October. And third, to focus our discussion, because we know the problems. We know the problems. We know perfectly that we are not giving enough space to resilience. We know that we need to shift from the fragmented system where you see humanitarian development, transition in different boxes. We need to shift that. But the important question that we would like to focus, and this is my question for everybody that is today participating in this online consultation, is how, from where we need to start to change all of that. Because I repeat, the issues, the majority of us, those who have been linked with humanitarian operations, will be, is very easy to identify. The how is a little bit more difficult, and there we would like to have our main discussions. And the second, we cannot solve all the hows of this world, because if not, you can imagine that we will be not working on humanitarian issues, because everything will be solved at this stage. What we would like to know is, where are the priority hows? Where we need to focus our discussions in order that we can finish on the 29th of October with some kind of regional action plan, with the commitment of all the participants to start to work from the 29th up until the up until 2016. Therefore, our approach is that whatever are the recommendations, whatever are the common actions that we need to take, we cannot wait to 2016, because you have already people that is suffering, you have already people that is not having access to water or to food or to health or to education, and we need to start. If we can identify some areas that we must improve, we need to start to do that after the 29th and not to wait to 2016. In any case, also we would like to maintain the steering group to renew the membership of the steering group of the World Humanitarian Summit, to see new faces sitting in that steering group, and to continue with this steering group up until 2060 in order to ensure that any recommendation and any action that are coming from this region are going to be reflected, to be properly reflected in the discussion in Istanbul. Therefore, I think that we have a huge task in front of us, but I would like, at least this is my position, wake up in the morning and I spend thousands of hours in front of my computer. The only hope is that some of the emails that I am sending out will be improving the quality of life of people who are suffering. And I believe that that should be the common thing among ourselves. How is not us, is not OCHA, is not the international organization, is those who we serve. And I think that this is the most important thing. We are serving people, and we need to ensure that our services are done with quality and are done in consultation with them. Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ignacio. I have to say, I think that your remarks are very much in line with what I'm seeing coming through the polls from the group of people who are participating here today. As you were speaking, we asked everyone in the virtual room if you could vote on one topic that you would like to see, the most important topic that you would like to see addressed throughout the summit process. The vast majority were mentioning communicating with affected communities, the role of civil society. So I think that theme is very strong, and I think an excellent point that you made, Ignacio, that we all, I think, know, everyone in this discussion sees the problems and also has quite some clarity on where the humanitarian community needs or wants to get to. But the big question, as you said, is how. And I think it was an important challenge that you gave to everybody in this conversation today to help come up with that answer, because that is the difficult question to come to find the answer to, is the how. And as you said, what are the priority hows? So I hope that following this event today, which is focused very much on understanding the process, we at PHAP are very much looking forward to delving into those more substantive discussions, and I hope everyone here today will come back next week, the week after that, the week after that, as we go into more detail in the specific issues that have come up that are relevant to the region, and dig into those priority hows. So anyway, thank you very much, Ignacio, for those inspiring initial words regarding the process. We do have some questions coming in, but I think we'll continue to collect questions for now. I'll turn to our other speakers, and then we'll come back to you, Ignacio, during the Q&A to answer some of these questions about the process. So now, if I could, I'd like to turn to Philippe. Are you on the line still? Okay, one moment. We're going to bring you on the line. So Philippe, coming in from Rwanda, and from a very different, although of course complementary perspective, with your work as Director of Disaster Response and Recovery with the Rwanda Ministry, what is your own perspective on the process thus far, and where do you see it going? Over to you.
Thank you very much. I will try to be brief because I think my signal and my connection is not very good. Here in Rwanda, we first thank the organizers of this event for the opportunity given to discuss on these humanitarian management issues. Here in Rwanda, we received this international humanitarian discussion as opportunity to strengthen our partnership in achieving our mission as humanitarian actors, and also to initiate partnership with the regional actors. It's not a long time that we heard from this summit and this humanitarian consultation that are being made, but we here in Rwanda, we tried to get all humanitarian actors on a table, and we discussed how we can become more effective and more achieving more in terms of addressing affected people needs. And this is a very appropriate and timely debate as we reach the midpoint of 2014, and this has already proven to be another difficult and challenging year on the humanitarian front. By the tragic situation in Syria, the most dramatically development in Iraq, and the international communities continue to grapple with the protracted and complex humanitarian crisis in South Sudan, Central African Republic, Somalia, and Yemen, just to highlight the most pressing in terms of scale. And we think we need to continue to strengthen the humanitarian response system, in particular with regard to working more closely with our development colleagues to ensure that the causes as well as effects of fragility are addressed. Unfortunately, the international community largely operates on a model that is reactive and relies on humanitarian agencies to pick up the pieces of fair development, of lack of development, and respond to crisis rather than managing risk and underlying causes. In our own context, and as we mark the 20th anniversary of the Rwandan genocide, much has been written about how the international community failed to take adequate notice of the underlying fragility and the growing tension in that country in the years leading up to terrible events of 1994. So today, even before the current crisis erupted, the Central African Republic and South Sudan were two of the poorest and least developed countries in the world, facing a range of problems exacerbated by internal communal tensions. And when we meet in our platform, here in Rwanda we have a national platform for disaster risk reduction, where we meet all interveners, the government, different ministries, the UN agencies, and international NGOs and the local NGOs, all interveners in the disaster and the humanitarian intervention. We meet quarterly and we discuss how we can improve our intervention and how we can mitigate and how we can get to regional and our neighboring countries and try to put in place a system where we can make sure that we are serving the people, we are trying to get the needs of affected communities. We are in a region in our country, in the neighboring countries, in a context where from 20 years ago, even more, we have been facing different humanitarian issues in Rwanda and Burundi, in DRC, in Uganda, in all our region. And we think it is vital, it is very, very important that we sit and we set for a mid and long time different priorities that we have to achieve together. And specifically in our debate, in our consultation that we had 1 week ago, we came up with different recommendations, but here I think I can summarize them in 5 big points. The first one was the inclusion. We think that we need to get the right actors on table to make sure that the people who are intervening in humanitarian intervention are the right people and are achieving the objective in the context of achieving the national and the regional target in terms of helping communities and affected people in a right way. That inclusion will go through the analysis of our objective, our target in different institutions, government, non-government, and to consider, this is very, very important, to consider the primary stakeholders. Here we mean the affected communities, the affected districts or different affected communities. We think it is very, very important that we get them on board and we consider their point from the planning, from the intervention, and even after. And we think we have to develop and put in place together different strategy or action plan and make sure that we have a common target, we have a common orientation, and if we know where we want to go together, it will be easy for all of us to reach the destination. The second point was to clearly defining purposes and goals in terms of humanitarian. For example, here in Rwanda, we have 60,000 refugees, mainly coming from DRC. And we have a range of different disasters and other big emergency issues that we have to deal with. And we think if we define clearly our purposes and our goals, and we set acceptable parameters of the regions, if we focus on results, and if we negotiate with partners on the role and responsibilities to be achieved, to be played by each intervener, this will help us to become more effective. The third point is the participation and the power sharing, because as we discussed in different areas, different countries, it can happen that, for example, government has a tendency to take all decisions on behalf of all humanitarian agencies. And we found that it is crucial that all together we participate in decision making and we decide on how the power or how the intervention mechanism will be shared between all interveners. there we think that is important to establish appropriate decision-making structures. The point 4 is the accountability. We think if we are using different resources, if we are hiring consultants, if we are investing a lot in humanitarian activities, we have to target for the accountability. We have to make sure that what we are investing, we are getting also results from that investment. So we think accountability of our interventions is very, very important. And we think, lastly, that the strategic influence of our humanitarian activities is very important in a way that our actions should inform and should influence the other activities in the other sectors. If our work, if our daily, monthly, our work on a year basis is not reflecting, is not connected with other national and regional priorities, we will not be achieving our mission correctly. We think we have, as humanitarian, to have a strategic influence to other sectors, so that if we are connected, we will be able to achieve more and more of our objectives. So without taking so long, I really thank this opportunity. I think I thank the idea to bring all actors, all humanitarian actors on table and discuss and set objectives to where we want to go. And now we have to set how to go there, how we can go there with effectiveness and with the efficiency. And we think here in Rwanda we are on a good way. We are not achieved all, but we are on a good way to continue to build the partnership, to improve our coordination mechanism, and even to influence our regional stakeholders, our regional partners in the neighboring countries, so that if we have the main target, the main objective, and if we work together, and if we know exactly where we want to go and how we can get there, I think it will be very, very easy to do so. So I thank you, and I think we will keep in touch on this platform and continue to interact and propose decisions that will be in the own interest of the humanity. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Philippe, for those excellent remarks. Tremendously helpful to have your perspective, having been so much involved in the process. And to hear in some detail how you see things can change. It's very encouraging and very helpful to hear your thoughts. As you were speaking, we asked the participants in the room here, building both on your own presentation, Philippe, and also on the previous presentation from Ignacio, we asked and challenged people here today, what are your first thoughts on how we can improve humanitarian action? And just very quickly, we see a number of interesting points already coming up from this group, and of course we'll include them in the report from today's event. But just a few highlights. We see some suggestions, for example, for quote flexible funding. Also an innovative proposal to find a way to reward agencies who collaborate more and even penalize agencies who collaborate less or who work in silos. We see a lot of emphasis from people today here on investing more in capacity building and empowering to develop new solutions that are locally, regionally relevant, finding traditional local solutions, finding local innovators to be more active in finding solutions. Also the proposal to allow flexibility for alternate consortia, alternate alliances of humanitarian actors in situations where clusters are not operational, and another suggestion to really invest in fostering a stronger culture of volunteerism. So we see a lot of different options being proposed here, and I'm sure this is just a small sampling of the proposals that are already actively being raised in pre-consultations and will of course be discussed in South Africa at the end of October. So I'd like to move right along. We don't want to run out of time today, and we want to hear from Anne Mitaru. So as I introduced her at the beginning, Anne is Humanitarian Advocacy Advisor for the East Africa region for Save the Children. She's participating today from Kenya, and Anne, we're very interested to hear your own perspective on the process and where you see things going from here. So we're just bringing you on now, and you should be fine to go. Anne, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think coming after the two speakers who went before me, I think they've made a very good case for the importance of this summit. I just want to reiterate that I think there is widespread recognition that the humanitarian landscape has changed tremendously over the last few decades. And I think what the World Humanitarian Summit does provides a great opportunity as humanitarian actors, as humanitarian responders, to very candidly review our work, the workings around the spaces where we're operating, and interrogate what we need to do and how we can make bold recommendations for the future, with the ultimate goal of ensuring that we're meeting the needs of millions of people. My short, 6 or so minutes will be just, and I know there'll be in-depth conversations in the following, conversations in the different webinars, but I say with what, this conversation is happening around, what is important for us to look at? What are the issues that are at the fore and I think would be important for the consultations to take at the heart of it? So this is just my opinions on areas of discussion I think that are extremely important for our region. Under humanitarian effectiveness, I would be interested to hear what the conversations are around complementing and strengthening national and local humanitarian efforts. There's appreciation that affected people and local actors such as, faith-based groups and civil society organizations, businesses and local government are often the first to respond to emergencies. And we know that a lot of the times they are most likely to know the context and the humanitarian needs of the communities. So the questions we need to find out and ask ourselves is how can local actors be best supported and empowered to address those local needs? Alongside this conversation, we need to interrogate appreciating the role of national and local humanitarian efforts. How can the international humanitarian organization and donors complement or better understand what's happening and fit into a broader range of entities and work that's going on? Alongside this, to add another layer, is that we have new actors in the issue in the conversation in the space that we're working as humanitarians, the private sector. For example, we've seen very robust examples where private sector has been part of emergency responses, whether it was for rapid or sudden onset emergencies or even slow onset emergencies, and even within conflict. So what is the role of the private sector? Military operations, diaspora groups, and again, how do their capacities, their expertise, and their resources find themselves into a larger conversation? I think these are new things. We've not had these, in the tens of years that we've been working as humanitarians, but now they're here. What does this new terrain need to look like? A second area to consider is, have we been applying the one-size-fits-all response kind of, mechanisms for what's happening? Do we need to review the importance of ensuring that, for different kind of crisis, we have very, very important views and, methodologies of how to respond to those conflicts? How can the international humanitarian action move away from the current one-size-fits-all support to ensure that we're responding to the different needs of and types of crisis? You know, East and Southern Africa has seen its fair share on a broad range of crises, from the conflicts, for example, in Sudan and South Sudan, droughts in different parts of East Africa and Horn of Africa, floods in Mozambique, etc. You know, how do we address these things differently and, you know, with each context in mind? Standards and accountability. We have humanitarian standards. What does that look like vis-a-vis the different actors I mentioned earlier? Do they stand? Do they need to be expanded, collapse, etc.? A more important conversation is accountability, and accountability of the international community, of governments, of communities, to the people whose needs we are, you know, need to respond. And I think that's going to be an extremely important conversation. And from, you know, the polls that have been done, I think accountability does come up a lot. So it'd be interesting to see how we can heighten that conversation. Financing, also an issue that we definitely need to look into. For example, in the current landscape, there are several humanitarian competing priorities around the world, you know. Also, we see new partners with capacity and expertise and resources becoming more prominent. How does the current humanitarian financing architecture support what is happening in different places around the world, the new monies, the new push to ensure that people are at the heart of our efforts? In thinking around reducing vulnerability and managing risk, I think Philippe has very clearly outlined some of the priorities, so I won't delve, you know, into that very much. But specifically, funding towards disaster risk reduction, mitigation, and prevention initiatives is key, so that we're relying on early warning and early action as opposed to very reactive work, which, you know, we find ourselves doing a lot of the times. Again, what can we learn from local communities around reducing vulnerability, and how can we scale this? Is there intention for us as humanitarians to see how we can, you know, broaden our humanitarian ambit to ensure we're working around early warning and early action and scaling the same? Quickly, in serving the needs of people in conflict, I think this is going to be an extremely important area in view of, you know, acknowledging there's an evolving political landscape, the characteristics of conflict are changing, there's an evolving humanitarian landscape. We need to be very deliberate in the questions and the pushes that we make around this. In view of increasing, you know, diversity of armed conflicts and different forms of violence, how can we better respond to the needs of affected people? How do we share information? How do we improve on the systems that exist? For example, we have cluster systems. Do these cluster systems incorporate new actors or community organizations and local NGOs? Those are some of the questions. We need to ensure we have issues around accountability. Understanding conflict dynamics is going to be extremely key, and contextualized approaches, and therefore who would be best placed to ensure we're responding to the conflicts that we're seeing. We also need to ensure, and I'm tying it very closely with what Ignacio said, demand-based programs that take into consideration the needs and aspirations of people. So it's not just needs of people that are at the heart of the work, you know, we're trying to do. It's also the aspirations, who they want to be and where they want to go. I won't delve much further to that because I see my time is up. But I think we need to be deliberate, and I think we need to be bold, and I think we need to explore the different avenues that are available and use, you know, for example, the regional consultation as a platform to not conclude these conversations, but to amplify them and, you know, begin them even as we work towards 2016. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anne. It was tremendously helpful. We're going to move now to a few questions. We've seen a few questions coming in regarding the process for the summit. So if I may, I'd like to go back to Ignacio. Ignacio, I very much appreciate, I've seen with the typing, you've been managing to respond already to some of the questions that came in through the Q&A. But since these are really important fundamental questions regarding how people can become involved in the consultation process in the region. Specifically, a question from Anne-Marie in Kenya about how you are identifying, or how the summit team is identifying the civil society and affected population representatives that will attend the regional consultation in South Africa. And then now we have a new question coming in from Stuart, who's he's new to the discussion about the summit process and is wondering if you could perhaps elaborate a little bit about what is the timeline of the consultation process, and how people, individuals, can engage in that process. So Ignacio, I'll give the floor to you to perhaps elaborate a little bit more on these the basic questions regarding the process and how people can be involved.
Okay, thank you. I try to be very short because the process as such is quite a long explanation. But for those who are new on the process, the Secretary General requested a World Humanitarian Summit mainly because, as Anne said, you have new actors, you have new forms of conflict, you have mega disaster. The humanitarian work is changing, and we need to reconsider all these new elements if we would like to continue to be relevant, if we would like to serve those who are suffering. And the proposal was to divide the World Humanitarian Summit in four main issues, what the World Humanitarian Summit call thematic issues. One is humanitarian effectiveness, the second is reducing vulnerability, managing the risk, the third is transformation through innovation, and the fourth is serving the needs of people in conflict. Now, in order to put a coherent process in place, the discussion was we are doing something at the global level in 2016, but how we ensure that the process is hearing from all of those who are involved in humanitarian issues. And the decision was to set up several regional consultations. The first one took place in Dakar for the West Africa countries and Central Africa countries. The second one was Tokyo for Southeast Asia, and the third one is for Southern Africa. The next one will be, if I am not wrong, Middle East, and the next one Latin America. Therefore, that the regional consultations is in order we know that different people is confronting different challenges. You cannot compare a crisis in Indonesia, that was my previous post, that with a crisis in Malawi. That means we would like to consider ourselves as individual communities, and I think that this is important to keep in mind as well. They would like to be considered them as a different communities and not to be treated as a equal, at the same communities using always the same tools, because some of these humanitarian tools are not useful depending on the context. But having said that, what we did here was to start a consultation process 4 months ago, more or less, to establish a steering committee that is composed by regional organizations, UN agencies, international NGOs, and local national NGOs, and that the steering committee is overviewing the process. OCHA is doing the secretariat. What we did up until now was to request people. We developed 3 main blocks of consultation. The first block was grassroots consultation, mainly communities and population affected. The second one was a stakeholder at the national level consultation. This is civil society, international NGOs and government. And the third one, and the last one, was private sector, mainly because private sector is increasingly more proactive on the humanitarian arena, and they are not included at all in any kind of humanitarian structure, or they are being considered in few occasions. Therefore, that three main pillars are the ones that are providing us feedback for these three different constituencies. We are putting that in an analysis document that will be finalized around 15th of October. Of course, that will be many people that has been not consulted, but will be also the way to engage them after October 29th, and we will discuss how to engage those who has been not properly consulted. Therefore, once that analysis is done, the analysis will be the base for our discussions during the workshop. Therefore, the format of the workshop will be very much based on the outcomes of the pre-consultation. Participants will be one community affected by country, one leader, because it's impossible to bring the whole community. Second, one civil society per country, two representatives from the government, one representative from the private sector. That means four from country to try to express how we have identified that who will be participating, those who has been relevant for the national NGOs, is those who has a civil society, those who has been relevant for the process. Finally, we have special constituencies and special like migrants, private sector, academic sector, refugees, women who will be invited through their own organization and their own. That means we are contacting women organization and we are requesting them to propose someone that has been affected by humanitarian crisis and they have the or someone that has been involved on the response. Therefore, what we would like to obtain at the end, the international community will be limited to maximum 50%. That means 15% can be from the international community, international NGOs, UN agencies mainly. But also we have decided in this occasion to invite the development actors. That means the regional banks, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, all of them will be invited because, I repeat, one of the questions is that if we would like to consider aspiration, we need to have another actors inside of the room. This is in a very summarized way. What we would like to have as outcomes, we would like to have for each of the thematic issues concrete and practical action on the how. And looking some of the answer, if you look in the answer, at the end continue to be, some of them continue to be the issue and not the how. We need to engage more the communities at the local level. Yes, it's right. How? Look, one question that is linked with technology. Someone was telling me, no, the solution is to send SMS. I was reading some of the outcome of the communities. 45% of them prefer to have face-to-face meetings with the international community and not to receive information through SMS. Therefore, we need also to compensate that and to see how we can have that communication. Yes, it's important to communicate with communities. That is the issue. How we can, or the recommendation could be, we need to improve communication with the communities. But what I would like to see is 2 or 3 actions that are priority that will improve that communication with the communities. Is a SMS system, is to include them inside of our coordination mechanisms, is to request to government to open a special space where the communities can be consulted in a regular basis. We need to go through that more concrete how if we would like to achieve anything. Therefore, the outcome will be concrete actions that are responding to the context of East and Southern Africa. Over to you. Sorry.
Okay, great. No, that was very helpful indeed, and I can see that even as you were speaking, there are a few other questions coming about the process, but we will be following up on those following the events so that we can wrap things up. Now I'd like to turn to both Philippe and Anne for some closing comments. So I'm going to be a little bit challenging to you, I think, if you don't mind. So I think we've seen in the discussion today that one of the real benefits of going through this process as the international community working on humanitarian response and investigating how it can be improved is that this process really gives everybody, it forces everybody to think about what big changes could take place or should take place in the sector. And a theme we see coming up through everyone's remarks today is the coming in of new actors into the system. And as I see in the questions and comments from participants, I see, for example, Mohammed asking, what exactly could be, will be, should be the role of the private sector? Are there risks involved? What are the benefits? I see from Abdul asking, how do you actually see the role of governments potentially changing in the future in terms of their involvement in humanitarian response, both domestically and in neighboring countries? And then comment from Meirek regarding conflict specifically, and asking how can actors in the humanitarian community and perhaps particularly NGOs, both national and international, have a stronger role potentially in working with governments or pressuring governments, international mechanisms to actually stop or prevent the emergencies before they take place. Is there space for the humanitarian community to move into a different role in the future? So for perhaps for your closing comments, if I could ask you to do this, first Philippe and then Anne, if you were to speculate, say 5-10 years from now, what do you think might be the biggest change that you could envision for the sector in terms of a new role for one or more types of actors in the sector, whether it's private sector actors, governments, or humanitarian agencies or other actors? So first to you, Philippe. Okay, so actually we're going to move to you, Anne, first. I think we may have lost the connection with Philippe.
If I were to speculate, envision 5 years, what would it look like? I think in 5 years I would see the people who are living next or closest to the emergencies being able to quickly and ably and confidently respond to the emergencies that are next to them. This will require a lot of shift in how we're working. I think that would be, where I speculate. I think the humanitarian conversation, the humanitarian terrain is changing a lot. And I think that will be something where, the shift where we're going, for example, so that if there's a flood in Mozambique, it's the people closest to where that flood is, they'll be able to know how to read, what's happening, how to respond to it early, and if they can't catch it in time, they're able to quickly, do what needs to be done to ensure that lives are saved, people are better equipped to respond to what's happening around them. I also think with the growing, space, this growing space, the issues around accountability will be harnessed and sharpened, whether it's accountability of international community to communities or accountability of government to communities, so that communities are saying, around these emergencies, how can we ensure our interests are at the heart of the responses that are happening? So that's where I think, the pace around humanitarian work will go. And just to plug in, I think these conversations are extremely important, and I hope all of us can speak to them at www.worldhumanitariansummit.org. The online consultations are extremely important also in informing what Eastern and Southern Africa's position will be. So I encourage all of us to go to that site to have a look and to answer some of the questions and be part of the discussions that are happening there. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anne, and thank you. You're doing my work for me in directing people to the online consultation. No, it's perfect. It's perfect. I can only say that so many times in 1 week, So thank you very much, and thanks again for being with us today. I think we have now recovered the connection with Philippe, so I'll try to turn to you, Philippe, for your closing remarks, and if you also want to speculate, if you would, about where you see some of the biggest changes happening in the sector in the next 5 years.
Thank you very much. I think I will focus on and how I see the change needed to be operated in the next 5 years, especially on government sides. What government have to change their interventions. I think firstly, the first is to invest more in risk reduction, because more of humanitarian challenges that we are facing are because of there is nothing done before. We just wait for crises, for disasters, for emergencies to come, and then we respond. And I think there is a need really to focus and to prioritize the risk reduction and to recognize the precedence of risk reduction on impact management. I think this is very, very crucial. The other point is to improve our preparedness, because even if we achieve more in risk reduction, many crises will remain, and I think we have to be prepared more. We remain there the continuous plans that we have to develop together with all interveners, starting of the community that may face the impact of disasters and emergencies, and then all actors to be active in preparedness, in the readiness, in the resilience. If we have all actors on board, if we work well together with everybody who intervene in humanitarian management, and if we consider also risk that can be reduced, can be mitigated, and even totally prevented, I think that this is a very, very important change that we have to operate. And I think it is possible. It is possible. If I give an example of our country, in 6 years ago, we used the budget 100% for the budget. We used 8% for response and recovery activities, and only 20 or less. But after a change, we moved and we decided to insist and to increase our efforts in the risk reduction. And now we are facing less in terms of number of events, of disasters, of emergencies in our country, because we have invested more and we have developed strategies that risk reduction is a priority. In each sector, they have to work on that, to mitigate the risk in their sector, and then together the country, the region should be able to minimize the risk that can affect their population. I think this is very important, and to keep those platforms whereby the interveners came and discussed and found together solutions that can be applied to different situations. I think this really change that we need. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Philippe. And thank you to everyone. It's been a fantastic conversation today. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is only the start for PHAP's involvement in support of this particular regional consultation. This is our launch event today to just get things started, to look at the process together with you. And then, as I mentioned, over the coming weeks, we have a number of events coming up where we're looking deep into each theme. We're working in collaboration with the thematic teams that are working on each of the 4 themes that Ignacio described. And we've also been collecting from the online written forum that Anne mentioned. We have been monitoring that. We've been involved in that and are pulling out what seem to be the top issues of concern. So we'll be really focusing down on those in the coming weeks, and we hope that all of you will be able to take the time to join us for that. I also do want to highlight, I see several questions, many questions and comments that we haven't been able to cover during this short hour today, but just to assure everybody, because I know some of you are new to this kind of event with us, we do a follow-up on the events. We'll have follow-up information available on our website and also feeding back into the summit forum that Anne mentioned. So the questions that are not answered here today, they will be kept alive and will be answered in the coming days and weeks. So thanks again to everybody. And with that, apologies for going a bit over time, but I think it was well worth the time, and it's really been a pleasure for me speaking with you. So with that, I think I'll just thank the team that we have here at PHAP in producing these events. Warm thanks again to all of our speakers, and encourage everybody to join the discussion in whatever means they prefer on the website you see in front of you on your screen, in the PHAP events, on Twitter, and in the local on-site events that I know are taking place now and will be over the coming weeks throughout the region. Goodbye, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on wherever you're joining from today, and talk to you next time. Over and out.
Bye.